Back again. Back again. Okay, let's talk about odds, baby. There's no one here to listen to me, but is that coming? We're talking about odds. Okay, let's. We had a decent little thing going on before, but whatever. It's okay. Let's share this over to Discord now that I've given him a bump steer. We back! Doofy, we back! Super Maple Turn. Oh, geez, I missed you guys. I've been doing other things this week and I'm caused a stink over in Discord. Let's talk about odds, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Oh, God, what is that? What am I drinking in my cup of tea this morning? I just woke up out of bed. Can you tell? Look at my hair. Back in the game, Martin, you betcha. All right, if it's a thing, and you can share this link somewhere just below where you're watching, there'll be a little share button. If you want to share that, that's great. If not, that's all good too. We don't really care. If it's only the 500 of us subscribers ever, that's perfectly cool with me. Our little Poseidon crew jumping in. No jacket. This is my jacket, mate. What are you talking about, Scotty Stencil? This is my jacket from yesterday. I just had it unzipped yesterday. You're tripping, dude. Yes, let's talk about all the good things and the bad things that make Zed, baby. Sell me a horse. I've only got expensive horses. Everyone keeps coming to me for the cheap ones. Go to Doofy. Look up Doofy Racing on Discord because I've positioned myself probably stupidly up at the top end with the Z1s and stuff and the Z2 Legends. Yeah, we'll get some merch coming soon, Grace, for sure. We'll get some Poseidon hoodies. I was thinking about getting a Poseidon hoodie with the Poseidon logo sort of draped over a shoulder for something different. What do you reckon? Tees and hoods? You know, you've got to have a hoodie if you're going to be in crypto, the young kids tell me. So, you know, if I do my videos like this, you know, that's the underground crypto world that we live in. Stupidity. I don't even know what we're talking about. I've lost the plot this morning, guys. Okay, we're going to talk about odds. We're going to talk about odds and why, particularly, and ask some questions as we go, but particularly why, Tyler, it's a little to the right, mate. We're going to talk about odds and in particular, why sometimes you'll get a Griffin where your odds might be 3 to 1, $3. And then you'll start racing paid and you'll be all the way out to 12s or you might even be all the way out to like 20s or something like that. Why that huge discrepancy? Or even sometimes you'll run a 1600, you know, grade 4 and you'll be 10 to 1. And the very next 1600 grade 4, both in paid, might be 40 to 1. You know, why that might be the case. Now, I don't know the answers to this, but I have some hunches on what might be affecting it. Razball, good to see you, Corey. Hoodie up, face down, looking up under the hoodie, eh? I turn all the lights off so it's nice and dark. Nice and dark and crypto-y, grungy. Pawn shop, what do I think about your AB thing? I don't even know what you're talking about, pawn shop. Give me a bit more information on that. Remind me, my memory is not good, I'm getting old. Yeah, how connected do I think Zed prices are to the whole crypto space? There'd be some, I think there might be some correlation there. Absolutely, when Ethereum and a lot of the altcoins are on a tear, then, you know, everyone in the crypto world has a lot of money to spend and that might be contributing to our, you know, the hockey stick we're seeing in prices to some degree. And I think if we get a major cool down in some of those spaces, then I would expect it to some degree affect Zed, but I also think that it's going to be, now I'm not a financial advisor of course, but I also think it's going to be somewhat insulated because of the utility and because of the fundamentals and the yield factor, which not everyone has discovered 100%, even I haven't discovered 100% myself yet. So I think there'll be some insulation there because of, yeah, the utility and the underlying fundamentals, they might be a safe haven to some degree to park, you know, money when everything's getting, you know, turning to poo. Then they might be some sort of a safe haven because of the yield that they can produce. Who knows? But I think there is some correlation. I think any major downside in those markets will temporarily affect Z2, I would imagine. All right, look, Zook, the great man Zook. We got them all here. We got Doofy, we got Zook. We just need ZG and Lucky J, and we got the whole crew. Maybe King Beeve could drop by too. I saw Beeve dropped a new video the other day. Go check that out. While I'm here, let me give some of me mates a bit of a shout out. Doofy, go check out Doofy on YouTube. Also Twitter if you're on there. I don't know how that works, but Twitter. ZG, Zed Gazette, go and have a look at zedgazette.com. Zook, hit me up on Discord. Have you got something that I should be plugging? Oh, I think you do. You're the pony plug. Is that a Twitter thing? I think it is. Guys, if you got something to plug that you want me to put, I'm going to put it in the description actually, all these links to all the community. So if you've got something, a stats site, a Twitter feed where you go live, you know, give me a yell on Discord, give me the link and I'll include it in here. Yeah, Zook, I know about that, right? Yeah, Doofy's too busy stealing all our ETH. Why do you think I'm not racing? That's because Doofy is racing. When he had his honeymoon, go and have a look. If you can isolate Doofy's honeymoon into stable profits, have a look at the profit me and my brother made while Doofy was away. And I've stopped racing since. I'm focusing on breeding and maintaining my horse percentages at the moment until some other things open up. All right, that's enough chatty chat. Let's go and share my screen and we'll talk about odds and then we'll come back and do some other stuff too. Look at this, we're in Photoshop. Those of you that don't know, Photoshop is my main business. Well, was. Maybe going to be Zed Run shortly. We'll see how that pans out. I will come back to these questions in a moment. I know there's price of Grand Ether is very expensive. I just sold Grand Ether's brother for 4 ETH, which I think was a bargain, and Grand Ether is a lot better than him. So I would be asking for in the region of 8 to 10 for Grand Ether. Oh, sorry. Have I still gotten that description? I've sold Grand Ether. I was thinking of Oh My Grandeur. I sold Grand Ether for 4 ETH. Is that still in the description, is it? I need to update that. Tyler. I saw Y2K2K get better odds than Ducky at 1200 yesterday, and now you're telling me he's getting better odds at 16. It's exciting stuff with all these bred horses coming through. You wait until we get 1 month run at breeding and see what Doofy does with that. It'll be interesting. Yeah, Jack, you're right. There's nothing, if I know Doofy, he's probably got similar mentality to me. And it's all good while we're at the top. And as soon as we get bumped, we're like, boom, we're looking for solutions to get back to the top. Okay, now I am of the understanding that many of my horses are not quite right at the top level right now. But I know that as Genesis, they can breed top level horses. I just got to figure out that combination. And I bet you Doofy is like scheming in the background. How can I bring Ducky into this, into that? You know, get that to work. I've been doing similar. I've got my little notepad where I'm drawing my little family trees and how I can get the best breeding combinations. Grandeur versus Dank at 2-2. I'm sure there's many replays of Grandeur versus Dank. Is that Dank Goose? Am I thinking of the right horse or am I completely off the track? All right, why have I got Photoshop up here? Well, it's because, can I push that off the screen that side and make this bigger? Ooh, hello. No, wait, let me. Oh, that's all right. We're going to talk about odds. Now, what I want to talk about specifically first before we get onto other trains of thoughts is why the odds can dramatically vary from a Griffin, for example, to a paid race. And I'm going to try and simplify it, and I don't think it's this simple, but I'm going to try and simplify it. Now what we have here is the vertical axis being run strength, A being the best. Okay, so A being a type of run that you might see Ducky Malone produce to win from nowhere, you know, one of those real flyers. So A is a real flyer, you know, B is a run that will win, you know, a considerable amount of time. C is probably more like a run that might win occasionally, but more likely to finish second or third. D is a win that would very, very rarely win, but you know, at its best could be a fourth or fifth, something like that. And E is just an absolute bag of turds. Bag of turds. That sounds like a good description of E. All right. No new sheriff at 2-2. All right, maybe we need to put Granger back in. He keeps losing those, look, and I'm trying to keep him above 25% win rate for the time being. If that's going to be important, we don't know. Okay, so let's have a look at a typical Griffin where you might have a heavy favourite. Let's go B for Brush here. Brush, where are we? Oh, I should have set all this up before, shouldn't I? As a Photoshop guru. All right. So for this example, we're going to assume all horses only have 3 run strengths in their repertoire, okay? I'm sure they have many, many more than 3, but for this example, we're going to assume they have 3. Now let's say our horse is horse number 5, and it's showing, and we're going to set it up so that it shows relatively short odds, all right? So let's have a prettier colour than that. Let's go with blue. All right, we'll make that a bit smaller. So 3 run strengths. So I'm going to project into, we'll call our horse number 5. Did I say that already? I'm not sure. But we'll have 3 run strengths. Let's say that it's got a run strength of C. Another run strength, oh, hang on. And then another run strength of C. And then a final run strength of D. Okay, we understand where that's going? Yeah? Now the rest of the horses in this field are going to be a combination of, you know, this sort of thing. Oops. I think I never used Photoshop before. Okay, so that horse has a run strength of E and 2 Ds. This one has a potential run strength of, say, man, oh man, come on. There we go. This one maybe has 3 Ds. And you might sort of see where I'm going with this. Now, I don't assume this is what's happening, but it does fit. It does fit. I could have set this up prior, couldn't I? Anyway, you can entertain yourselves while I'm trying to figure out how Photoshop works. You wouldn't want to do one of my Photoshop courses, would you? This one is not very good at all. Couple of E's. Yeah, and this one might be really, really bad, you know. Might only have run strengths of E. We all got a few of those horses, right? What was my horse back in the day? Golden Dragon. He used to be a bit of a hero. Thumbs up. Yeah, hit the thumbs up. Give me some like. We got 43 viewers and 17 likes. A lot of you aren't paying your entry fee. Well, come on, we know what the entry fee is. Now this horse here, number 6. Yeah, it's not great either. Maybe it has one really good run in it. We know that when we have an odds of, maybe it's got 1 B in it like that. Like every now and then it's going to throw a B. Okay. So you know that when you have $3 odds, you get beat by something, don't you? And well, this is why. I really should have set this up, shouldn't I? The suspense. Okay, we'll do a couple more. We'll do a couple more. We'll restrict it to 10. This can be a 10-horse race for the example. This one might have a good run in it too. Maybe this one has a big run like that in it. Oops, I forgot to hold down the shift key. This one's no good, 9's no good. And 10's reasonable. 10's got a couple there. Couple there. And one there. Okay, so in a 10-horse race, Griffin like this, you can see that our horse here, number 5, has, got a 2 in 3 chance of being a run that's going to be right up there. And the only way that it won't win in this scenario, if it produces one of those 2 runs, is if one of these horses happens to hit on its really great winning run, okay? So in this scenario, what you've got here is a horse that in actual fact is not really, really great. It's one of those kind of 3rd to 8th type horses, okay? Because it's very consistent in its run strength. It's producing C's and D's, mostly C's, okay? So it's always going to be there or thereabouts, but in a weak-ish Griffin where you've got horses that are having run strengths of mostly E's and D's, so not very, very good, you're going to show up with odds of around about 3 to 1, 4 to 1, something like that. And then you'll get a horse like, this one, for example, is probably going to be, 5 or 6 to 1. This one might be 6 or 7, and this one might be 7 or 8, and the rest of them are going to be out there at 13s or 14s or 15s or 20s or 30s or whatever they happen to be. Okay, so in this scenario, this horse here, is going to be up there as one of the favourites. Maybe not quite 3 to 1, but if this point here had been, maybe it has all C's, for example, all runs, so it's going to run a C regardless. So then, out of all the races we generate, it's only got two horses that are going to beat it significantly and one other that's basically on the same plane. So there you have a horse that is very, very consistent, is going to get really, really short odds, but is not necessarily an elite type winner that you might be looking for. Now, if we grab the eraser here, where on earth did I put the eraser? Is that it? Let's just erase away some of these. You guys understand what I was talking about with that, hopefully? Now, when this horse then comes to a hot field in a paid class 3 or a paid class 2, when this horse comes to a paid, a hot field that has a horse like Ducky's run performance would look something like, keep in mind Ducky is very inconsistent, Ducky's going to have something like this. Maybe even that C isn't even in there. Maybe that C isn't even there, right? Maybe it's more like this. More like that. But when Ducky produces an A, Ducky wins. Hence why Ducky wins like 1 in 4 races against the best fields. Okay, and then you've got another horse in here like Y2K2K from Tyler, our good mate there. And that's looking pretty nice too. Now we don't know, maybe Tyler just has a better Class A run with his Y2K2K and that's why he's getting better odds, but it's probably still a first last horse. Or maybe it could have a similar A run, but its backup run might be a C. Okay, so that would affect those odds and hence why it's getting slightly shorter odds than Ducky. Now, if it's inconsistent, it might have a bag of turds E run there as well. I'm allowed to say bag of turds on YouTube. Well, I guess we'll find out. If I put this through as friendly and I get a strike. Anyway, that's all good. So you can start to see with horses like this, and then you might have a horse like Breathless Edge, for example, who tends to run a little bit more like this. Maybe a little bit more like this. Might have a couple of runs in around this field, and then it has one, not so iffy one about there. Okay? And then who else could we add in there? Who else? We add in, who else is a gun? Anyway, I can't think right now. We'll put Insane Him in there. I can only think of my own horses. Excuse me while I just shill my own horses. Insane Him's probably got, You know, one good run up about there and a couple, you know, one about there maybe. And he doesn't tend to run, oh, he does have a few ordinary races in him about there. Now what you can see is, as this quality field builds up, the really top horses may not have the consistency that our original Griffin horse had here in box 5, but you can see those C runs are starting to look a bit how you're going. Like, they're not likely to win anymore, are they? Because if Ducky runs this, you know, 1 in 3 race, or Y2K2K runs this race 1 in 3, or Breathless Edge runs either of those, which looks to be a 2 in 3 chance, or Insane Him runs his quality run, or Doofy's got a vast sensibility that seems to be pretty decent as well. See you, Locke. Bye. Have a good day, mate.
Bye.
Bye. Little boy off to school. Vast Sensibility seems to have runs that are, you know, around about, I don't know, Insane Him level. It's consistent. Whoop. It's consistently good. I'm not sure if it's a first last. I do feel you need to tell me more about that, but it might be something more like that. You can see this horse that was $3 in the Griffin is now going to be, if we keep filling this field up with hot field like that, it's going to be pushing 30 or 40 to 1. Okay, so that's where you can get that incredible variation. Zombie Boy. Let's throw in Zombie Boy. Absolutely, give Zombie a shout as well. I think Zombie's more of a first last horse, you know, depending on distance. So he's probably more like Ducky, where, you know, something like this. Okay, now keep in mind, let's change the colour here. This one here is our horse. Okay, now Consistently C looks very good in a Griffin, but Consistently C runs are not going to look good in the higher classes, Class 1s, Class 2 paid. Yeah, so that's why you're getting those enormous variations. Now, does this also account for, and it may well do, the dramatic variation you can see in like paid Class 4s, for example, where people will often mention or discuss that, oh, my horse got $8 odds in a 2200 paid $5 Class 4, and then I entered him in the very next 2200 paid Class 4, and he was 30 to 1. Now, it could just purely be a field strength. There are various other theories that I was tossing up in the beginning, like, let's say, for example, you can see here I've got 3 different run strengths, but let's say, for example, you had, now I don't know if this is even a thing, whether you've got a bag full of run strengths and you sort of randomly reach in and pull one out and, oh, Ducky got an A, or, you know, and then they go off against each other depending on what the random, you know, spin the chocky wheel. Oh yeah, we got that really great run. Now, the interesting thing is, if you have a horse, let's just give an example here. If you have a horse, for example, let's say that there was 10 run strengths, or let's say there was 5, for example, and they look something like this. Oops. They look something like this. You know, most of them are a bit iffy. Oop. You know, maybe you got one there, and then maybe you've got an A grade run. Now, what if, for example, this is an extreme example, what if when you've run that particular style run or that particular strength run, let's say you've got 10 of them, maybe you've got 50 different runs, maybe you've got 20 different run strengths. I don't know. I don't know how the run strengths are made up, but they're obviously somewhat predetermined so that you can get the odds and affect the odds in this way if it's working like this. But what if this particular run strength on this particular horse here, after you run this run strength, after you run it, maybe it's not available for the next 5 runs or next 3 runs. And that could also compensate or account for some dramatic variation, because when you have that run strength available, you're going to be 5 to 1, you know, 8 to 1 against the best strength. But when you run that run and you get a first or a second and it's no longer available, then your odds could blow out to 40 or 50 to 1 really, really quickly, because it's not there to use. Now that's a crazy theory, but it also may account for that dramatic variation if that's a thing. I don't know, what do you guys think? There's a couple of different reasons why those odds could be getting huge variation. All right, we've got the likes up there looking pretty good. Hit the like button if you haven't paid your entry already, and feel free to drop a couple of questions, what you think about those things there. Let's switch back to full screen for the time being. Let me have a look up here if there was any questions that I missed. I wonder if Pawn Shop got back to me with his AB description. Zook got $3.20 odds and came in last in a Griffin. Well, that's relatively easily explained. And in actual fact, if I was going to buy a horse purely on one single run from a Griffin race, you would want to buy the one that had low odds and came last, rather than, funnily enough, low odds and came first, because low odds and come first, if you have a CCC run type horse that we were talking about, is the expected outcome. But low odds and come last for a CCC type horse is not generally the expected outcome. It's more the expected outcome of a horse like a first last type horse like you have in barrier 1 here. Okay, so I'd be pretty excited about getting low odds in a Griffey and coming last. MT, a horse has $6 odds in 42 races at one distance and winning roughly 20%, placing 26. Also pulls $7 odds in 58 races. I don't think that makes... There's not that big a discrepancy between those figures. You know, when we're talking 29% over 58 races, you're only talking a couple of wins to change that from 19 to 29. So it could just be pure luck. You know, that let's call it the big chocolate wheel. And if you're a $6 or a $7 favourite, they're basically the same wedge shape, you know, surface area. You know what I mean by a chocolate wheel? When you go to the casino and you've got those tiny little slithers that are like 500 to 1, and then you've got the big wedge like this that's like 3 to 1. And you spin it and it comes up. You know, 6 to 1 and 7 to 1 are roughly the same. And when we're talking small sample sizes of 42 races and 58 races, it only takes 1 or 2 extra wins or so to really, you know, show some rather large variation. So you would need to run that horse out to 200 runs and see what those win percentages are doing. But I don't think it's a concern. Keep running it at both. Keep running it at both. Pawn Shop. I have separated the A being over 5 entry and B, but not free races, and breaking a racehorse down by that, seeing if I would suggest that the over $5 would be tougher than the under. It certainly seems to be that way in class 1 for sure. And what I mean by that is the $5 races, you know, people seem to be more inclined to have a punt and put in borderline horses in the $5. Whereas when you get to the 25 and the 50, you know, it's all the guns. It's really tough up there. Yeah, MT, I kind of got that. Y2K2K. Looks nice, Tyler. Congrats. I'd be interested to know, mate, how'd you snavel that one? Did you do some research on the odds? Because I did have a look at the odds myself yesterday and saw some 4s and 5s and 6s in there and thought, damn, that's a good horse to buy. I'd be interested in knowing what you paid for it, just out of research purposes. But I think you got a beauty. Where'd that go? Vast, yeah. It's interesting. They're going on, the class 1 horses are going on these really, really interesting form streaks. I noticed that Slander Unlimited, according to some of the stats sites, is having a really great month, whereas Breathless Edge and Insane Him, for example, before I stopped running them, were just in incredible form slumps. And I've seen them before. You know, you slump for 20 odd races, then you'll win 5 of your next 10 or 15 races or something. But yeah, it's really interesting, and it's rather hard to deal with, but I'm starting to focus on breeding myself and breeding the next generation. Yeah, Michael, that Y2K is looking like a beast. Oh, Roid Rager. Yeah, so UFO nut Roid Rager would just be like pretty much all A-grade runs from what I can see, from what I could have, or from the experience that we saw, was just all A-grade. So pretty much the only way you could beat it would be if something like Ducky ran like the best A-grade run in her bag. Now, the interesting thing about Roid Rager and Escobar, was that it? I think it was Escobar, is that it gives us a little bit of a glimpse into what the end game of Zed looks like. Whether or not you can stack the genetics. So the overall game of breeding, right, and most people aren't really thinking this out just yet, but the overall game of breeding, in my opinion, needs to be, or has to be, or is likely to be, isolating and concentrating genetics. Okay, so you need to have a look at what style horse you're trying to breed, and then find the parents that have those particular traits, and then try and breed in a way. And I'm a big believer of testing at each level, or at least every second level, to see if you've isolated the genetics you're looking for. Because, you know, you can have a horse like Breathless Edge or Grandeur or Vast Sensibility or Phantom Pacer or Ducky Malone, any of these horses, their genetics, you know, if they have particular bars, let's say they have particular strengths, and they might be made up of 100% bars, like you might have speed, you might have consistency, you might have, I don't know what else might be there, but, you know, for example, Ducky at the moment looks to be pretty strong, but is Ducky's speed bar, is that at 80%? Is it 70%? Or is it maybe it's 50%? And you need to sort of stack that up. And if you breed Ducky, for example, with Insane Him, he might have a 40% speed bar. And if you manage to luck in and get the perfect genetics, can you get the 50 and put on Insane's 40 and get a 90? We don't really know, do we? We don't really know. But my concern is at the moment, now absolutely you can breed champion horses from donkeys. We see many, many examples from that, and many people are asking, why are we mainly seeing these champions come from donkeys? And I think it's purely probability at this stage, because 95% of the horses that are, or the combinations that are being bred, are somewhat donkified. You know, they've got at least one donkey in the combination. So, of the 3,000 recently bred horses, it makes sense that 10, 20, 30 of them would be good. You know, if we're going 3,000 and there's 30 good ones, you know, it's 1 in 100. It's not a great hit rate. But it's to be expected. Now, why aren't we seeing any, you know, real superstars being bred from, you know, the gun horses yet? Or not many yet. Could be 2 reasons. Number 1, the probability isn't quite there yet, because there's not a lot of those combinations currently being bred together. Number 2, maybe as you get up the chain, it would stand to reason that it becomes slightly more difficult to breed those combinations, because if a horse like Breathless Edge or Ducky Malone was, well, Ducky looks to be a really, really good breeder actually, so that's not a good example. Breathless, you know, doesn't have any superstars in its first generation of breeding yet. It's got a few as grandkids and whatnot, absolutely. But it would stand to reason that if Breathless Edge was the best runner and also the best breed and was just throwing out champions left, right and centre, that, you know, that may not be good for the game, because it might just absolutely dominate the game. So it also stands to reason that as your horse maybe gets more talented, it might get slightly harder to produce good offspring. Now the second reason is that, or did I already say that? The fact that, yeah, I did. We don't have the huge numbers of these combinations breeding together. So if they are 1 in 20, 1 in 50, of producing these absolute champions. I would expect to start seeing them in the near future as we start breeding these more together. Now, I also expect that the top-notch horses, we might need to condense them down and breed them down a little bit more into grandkids and great-grandkids. And I would expect that once you bring these breeding lines down and you do the right combinations and the right isolating and condensing of the traits that you're looking for, by the time you get down to, you know, where you want to be, you may be able to breed champions or really, really strong horses at a higher level, like maybe 1 in 5 or 1 in 10 or 1 in 20. But it might take months to get down to this super breeding pair where you've really condensed those bloodlines down, stopped and checked, stopped and checked, stopped and checked. Anyway, there's a little bit of an idea of where I'm going. More questions here, guys? I don't think, Pawnshop asks, how can we create a consistent V pattern in a pony? I don't think anyone really knows exactly how to do that yet, but Lucky Jack's here. Shout out Lucky Jack. Big fan, mate. I don't think anyone knows. The best of my ability would be to breed horses that already have a V-shaped pattern. And I'm also seeing that V-shaped pattern, and what we mean by V-shape is lots of firsts and lasts and not too many in the middle. First and last places and not too many of those consistent mid places. And I'm also seeing, as you breed Nakamoto's, for example, we're getting more of that first and last. So that could be a thing also. There's a horse right now. I was just chatting with the owner this morning called, which is a really interesting example. Let me have a look. Shout out to TK with Vanilla Bean. Vanilla Bean was something that I was looking at the other day because she is, I believe it's a she is a Z9 Buterin bred with a Z1 Knack. And from memory, shall we bring her up? Shall we bring her up? Let's have a look. Let me go back to full screen here. All right, let's have a look at Vanilla Bean. As I said, shout out to the owner, TK, who does a lot of work behind the scenes on the stats. What is the site for the stats? I better give that a shout out while I'm here. Where are you? The stats site is zedstats.run. Check it out, guys. It's really, really good. Really, really good. Okay. Vanilla Bean. Now, this looks to be, I haven't had a close look at whether this is actually a V-shape, but by its stats, it certainly looks to be. 28% win run. This thing is phenomenal. 384 races, 110 wins, just absolutely monstering them, killing it. I'm assuming it's probably in grade 4 or 5. And you can see here it comes from what looks to be a relatively average Z9. This Starlet horse, boom, looks to be an absolute weapon as far as breeding is concerned. It might be a gun racer too, so if you own Starlet, hold this thing tight or message me on Discord and I'll buy it off you. But look at this, 15%, 100%, 28%, 21%, you know, it's producing the goods here. Vanilla Bean, you know, even this Z19 Star Sniper, where's this come from? It's come from Starlet and a Z18. So what's going on there, I don't know, but it's very interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting for me holding a few Z1s to think that maybe these next monster V-shaped horses are going to come from, you know, higher Z numbers bred with Z1s, pulling in, you know, maybe that's a really interesting combination. Maybe. It's super exciting. Corey, I don't know. Corey says he's got a decent Z10 wanting to build out a solid stable. should he focus on breeding with Buterins or get a knack? Well, based on this, it's certainly very interesting when you breed Buterins with a knack for sure. I don't know if this is a consistent thing, but you know, some of these stats guys are going to be able to produce these patterns shortly and tell us. That will be the next, you know, sort of generation of stats will be, right, let's have a look at the stats and have a look where these beasts are coming from. Is it Buterins bred with Buterins? Is it Buterins bred with knacks? Is there a higher percentage of monsters coming from the knack-Buterin combination as opposed to the Zabo-Buterin, or as opposed to the Finny-Buterin or Buterin-Buterin, if you know what I mean. The seed is strong, yeah. I think that horse, this horse here, is a beauty. I do like the black horses as well. I think they're really strong, powerful looking horses. Block Beauty, the stable, looked them up. If you're watching Block Beauty, you know, I would be interested in buying, but I'm probably not going to shell out the money that this thing is worth. But give me a shout, breeding-wise. Let's talk. I've got Be Lucky, which is already a Z10 monster. Let's combine them together. All right, was there any other questions? Drop them in down below as I just scan through here. Lucky I jumped on. I got a meeting in 15 minutes, so I'll have to jump off shortly. Will Zest bets affect odds once they get rolling by Trillion? I think once they start gambling, I don't think Zest will be the platform they use. I think they'll have to use more of a tote system where the money comes in and the odds are based on the weight of money, not so much. You know, they might use the Zest odds as a bit of a guide, you know, like a form book, as well as, you know, the winning percentages and a few other things. But essentially the fairest way, I think, to bet on this would be more of a tote system where the money goes in and the pool is divided, or the odds are created, or sorry, the payouts are created by the pure weight of money. Okay, if that makes sense. So the odds, it's not a fixed odds system, it's a variable odds system, and the odds are not calculated until the betting is closed at the race start. And then once the race starts, you get the finalised odds based on how much weight of money is in there. That's how I see that playing out. What's the minimum breeding male level we should try to get to? I don't exactly know what you mean by that, Raymond. I mean, I would like, Z1 seems to be the pinnacle for breeding in my opinion. And I think we're starting to see hints of that. I don't know whether we're going to see the Z1 combinations, as I said, with Zabos, with Finnies, with Buterins, end up being the next generation of guns, or whether Buterin will also combine, or whether it will be much like the Genesis, where Buterins alone, you know, 1 in 100 are really, really good, but but knacks alone, sort of 1 in 10 are really, really good. So maybe when you combine, I don't know. We don't know. We really don't know. But you got to. The best way to play this game, I believe, in the early stages is try and come up with a vision for where you think the game is going to be taken to, and then buy accordingly to that vision. Okay, so buy the. You know, if you're playing a board game, for example, if you're playing Monopoly, you want to buy the properties that potentially are the most important in that game. Okay? So whatever your favourite properties are in Monopoly is based on your experience of the game and how you've played that game. Now, the more you play this game, you're going to start to sort of have these light bulb moments. Oh, I understand why Z1 males are so important to this ecosystem now, because not only do they start the breeding point, but they can also be inbred back in multiple times into strong bloodlines. So not only do they start the breeding cycle, but you can bring them back in every second breed. Okay, so the demand, so if you want to really concentrate Breathless Edge or Granger's Blood or Phantom Paces or any of these strong male horses, not only can you start a legend breed with this horse with another Genesis, But after you breed that with one other horse, after you breed that offspring with one other horse, so that Breathless Edge is now the grandparent, you can bring Breathless Edge back in again to concentrate that breeding line, concentrate those genetics hopefully, okay? And then you can breed again and then bring Breathless Edge back in again. So the breeding revenue, and I'm not a financial advisor, but the breeding revenue for studs in particular is really, really interesting on a Genesis level from a Genesis stud, because not only can you breed the starting point, you know, the seed for the breeding in the legends, but they're also important down the line. Well, I don't know that. They look to be important down the line. But that would be the case. It's not only the case with Z1s, that's the case with all Z Genesis males, in my opinion. Now, the females are also really, really important because you can grab the genetics from the breeding barn. You can sort of snipe good genetics down, breed your own offspring, sell them, or create your own bloodlines. Okay, so there's pluses for both sides of the scale there. Let's have a look at a couple of questions, and I've got to bail because I've got a little business meeting. I've got to do real work, which kind of sucks, doesn't it? I do think crossbreeds will be good eventually. Is a horse with all four bloodlines called a mute? Well, it can be. I haven't heard that term, but sure. Tyler, you'd be better off asking Doofy this. Can you breed an uncle with a niece? I believe you can. Oh, Y2K and Wildcatter are related, are they? Interesting. Who is the common ancestor there? Let me have a look. Is it, I think I know who it is. What's that? Wildcatter. Zion? Is it Zion? It must be Zion. Yeah, okay. Zion is the relation. Interesting. So Zion looks to be producing some epic legends, epic legend horses. If we click on here, not the greatest runner himself, 7%. But look at what he's producing here. A lot of these aren't run, but you've got Let's Elope, 14%, pretty damn fine. So get a hold of Y2K 26, Wildcatter 18, another one. So nearly everything that's run in this line is pretty good, except there's a couple that aren't. And I'd say probably most of these are still held by Paddy Jack Harley Stables, PJH Stables. So get in touch with him if you're interested in buying one of these. Could be a worthy buy, maybe. Or maybe, oh, look how many he's got. There's plenty of them. Another 20. This thing is a gun. This thing looks to be an absolute gun, Zion. Well done, PJH. Geez, I hope I have something like this in my stable. That'd be nice. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up. Let me just have a quick scan. But yes, you can breed uncle with a niece. I think you need to be one breed separation. So you can't breed brothers and sisters directly, but you can, I think, breed uncles and nieces. I'm pretty sure Doofy's done that. Have a look at the bloodline of Atari. I think that's similar to what you're talking about. Oranges. We've all got our favourite. I like the greens, Scott. I like the greens in Monopoly. I mean, everyone, the coveted blues, you know, Mayfair and Park Lane, but no one, you always buy them, no one lands on them. No one ever lands on them, do they? The greens, that's the go. Well, in actual fact, I would suggest the green horses are the best too. Breathless Edge, hey? Who knows? I do like, what's the Gainsborough super rare colour in the greens as well. That's my favourite colour, so maybe it's a green thing. And Doofy is saying yes, I believe, to Tyler's question of breeding uncles and nieces or nephews. All right, we're going to wrap it up there. Geez, that horse looks good. I might have to get a hold of Paddy Jack and see if I can get a bit of that bloodline. What an absolute belter. All right, Paddy Jack, if you happen to be watching, you're probably not. You've got busier other things to do than watch this hack, but Anyway, guys, we're going to wrap it up there. Hit the like button, hit the sub button if you wouldn't mind. And I'll see you, who knows, tomorrow, the next day, something like that. We'll do it again. Okay, bye for now.